Morning, everybody. It's just Sunday morning. My name's Gary. This is my very first episode ever. I'm retired from a large Midwest grocery chain. Actually, it's not just Midwest anymore, it's global. Wait a minute, it can't be global. It's more like nationwide. 36 years with the same company. I was a meat cutter slash manager. But this is some of my stories about work and not about work. And this is a compilation. Is that a word? It might be a word. I think it's a word. Anyway, a friend of mine at work told me one time, Gary, as much as you run your mouth, you should get paid for it. So I figured, hell, I don't even care if I get paid here. I just want to run my mouth. So like I said, I'm retired. Just retired this past week. I just want to share some of my stories. First off, I'm not from the Midwest. I'm from the Northeast. Came here in 1981 from Massachusetts. Graduated high school in 1979 and had no direction. I didn't want to go to college. I said, fuck college, man. Why? I'm going to get a job. I'm going to be a grunt. I'm going to learn a trade. All my other friends that graduated high school with me, they were going to college. They said, fuck it, I'm going to college. Mommy and daddy are paying for college. My first job was working at a garage, a Shell station, learning how to turn wrenches. I started out as a pump jockey. If you don't know what a pump jockey is, I'm going to tell you. That's when a car pulls up. This is way before. This is way back to 1979, 1980, right in there. Car pulls up, and you go to the window and you say, will it be regular or unleaded? You had to say that because, but nowadays, there's no regular and there's no unleaded. It's all fucking unleaded. But you had to say regular or unleaded, ma'am or sir. And they would specify regular or unleaded. And in any case, you would be, say, okay, I want to fill it up with regular. So I'd go back and I'd get the pump off the machine and I'd stick it in the back of the car or the side of the car, wherever the porthole was for the gasoline. And I'd jam it in there. Well, I got to be careful about saying jamming anything in anywhere. That's another story completely because I got a sick mind. Anyway, so I would place the nozzle in the hole. Okay, all right. I would place the nozzle in the port of the car where the fuel goes into. And while it was pumping, oh God, as it was filling, I would get the little window washer and I'd clean their windows for them. I said, can I check your oil for you? All that bullshit. Really, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to learn how to pump gas and become a pump jockey. And the money's kind of shit, but that doesn't matter. Rain, snow, heat, doesn't matter. The only benefit I got from pumping gas was if a chick pulled in or a lady pulled in and she had a low cut blouse on, or a short skirt. Oh yeah. That was like, we're like jackpot. Or we'd be all sitting inside the gas station waiting for cars to pull up. And we could see there was a chick, we'd run to go out there and help them. Just banking on the fact that they might look good. And that was the bonus. That made our day. To maybe get a glimpse of some boobs. If they're a low cut blouse, way down blouse, we'd be like, yes, well, ma'am, is there something I can do other than check your oil? Your oil looks fine. Would you be paying with cash or credit card? Are you sure you don't want me to check underneath your dress? Underneath your hood? I'll check underneath your hood. So I did that for about a year. And I'm thinking, there's got to be a better way to make a living. This is bullshit. I don't make enough money at a pump jockey. So one day my boss said to me, he goes, hey, Gary, hey, you want to learn how to work on cars? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. Now, I've done plenty of body work back in my life. Before I got a job at a gas station, my first job, it wasn't really my first job. My first job was a busboy at a restaurant. But that's another episode completely. I said, yeah, I did body work. I've worked on the outside of cars all my life. Even in high school, I started working on cars with body work. Anything had a dent or rust, I fixed it. But I said, yeah, I'll come in here and work on cars. I'll learn how to do that shit. And they would get the car in the air and they'd pull the tire off. And they say, now that's the brakes. And then these are the brake pads. And you take it off with this wrench. And then, I'm not going to go through all the details, but they were showing me how to change brake pads and shit. And stuff like that, and I got a call. One day I got a call from my boss. He goes, hey, Gary, we're not going to need you to come back in today. We're downsizing. We're downsizing. We're going to need you to lay off for a while. I'm like, what? Thank God I still lived at home with my parents. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be working here anymore. They're laying me off because they're downsizing. And I'm thinking, oh, well, fuck. What am I going to do? And so I remember there was a guy, he was my geometry teacher in my senior year of high school, that had a car that needed some work. And he told me when I graduated high school, he said, hey, Gary, if you ever get the time next summer, I got this 1971 Nova, Chevy Nova, and I wanted to give it to my son before he goes off to college. And it's got a big rust spot in the quarter panel, in the rear quarter panel. And can you fix it for me? I said, yeah, sure. Now, I had no tools. I had a Black & Decker drill. And if anyone knows from back in the 70s and the 60s, Black & Decker made one line of drills. And they were always chrome colored or silver colored. And they had one speed. I'll do one speed. One speed. You didn't have to back off on it. You didn't have slow. You didn't have fast. You didn't have speeds. So, that's what I had. And so you stick it in the drill bit in the top of the plate, and it's a long story. But anyway, what I did is I had a disc, a standing disc that I would put in the top where the screw goes, where the like a Phillips head or a regular flathead screw in the drill, and that was my sander. If I didn't want to waste my time breaking my arm sanding away on a car, oh yeah. I want to sand all day in this motherfucking car. You get the drill out. But the only problem is with the drill, you got to be careful. Because if it needs to be drilled, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I apologize. Let's go back to the fucking Nova. So I get to this guy's car. I have a hard time keeping on subject, folks. But I catch myself, so I get random sometimes. But anyways, we'll continue really quick. We'll make this podcast very short. Anyway, so I go to see this guy's car, Mr. Henderson, never forgot his name. And I look at the rear quarter panel, and the rust around the quarter panel, I'd say it was about the size of a basketball. And you could see light through the other side. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ. I said, Mr. Henderson, you've been driving around like this all your life? He goes, well, I've had a car about 10 years. I never had it worked on because I just didn't figure it was a big deal. Now you want it to be fixed. I say, well, it's going to have to be plastic surgery to fix that hole. Now, I said, tell you what, give me the car for the weekend. I still live at home with my parents. I'm sure my dad will let me use one side of the garage to work on this car. And so what happened was, he gave me the keys of his Nova, which was a pretty nice running car. Anyway, I took it back to my dad's house, my mom and dad's house. And I'm looking at this fucking hole. Like I said, you could see light through the other side. That's how big the rust spot was. I don't know. So I figured I knew my way around Bondo. Now, if anyone out there doesn't know what Bondo is, you'd have to work in a body shop or know a little bit about tools to know what Bondo is. An application. It comes in a gallon jug, and it looks like Play-Doh. All right? And it's used even today in today's standards. I'm sure it does. It's been around for a zillion years. Even in today's standards, you take it out with a ladle, you slap it into a cup, and then you got to add this resin, this hardening resining. It's like the Bondo is like gray in color, and then you got to add this resin to it. Stir it up really good, and it gets it hard. Oh shoot, I can't say hard. That gets me excited. Now we'll say it sets up. The Bondo sets up so you can use it. There we go. Well, the Bondo it has to adhere to something. So if the guy's got a dent in his car, you lay the Bondo in the dent, and it levels it off, and it sets up. Okay, it gets hard. It sets up. And then once it sets up, then you can take it and sand it down and smooth it, and it makes it look uniform with the rest of the car. And then you can paint it. You prime it and paint it. Well, when you got a fucking hole the size of a basketball, there's no way you could put 5 gallons of Bondo in it, but it's got to stick to something on the other side. So I figured, okay, I knew a little bit about fiberglass mesh because I never played with it, but I saw some of my buddies play with it. It comes in a sheet. It looks like cheesecloth. Matter of fact, it looks exactly like cheesecloth. Well, you lay it in there. You take it out and take it off the roll. It comes in a roll like cellophane, and you take it off the roll, and you got to put the actual liquid fiberglass resin on the edges of it, and then you stick it on I would stick it on the outside of the hole where it would adhere to the metal, the existing metal that was still on this fucking fender, this quarter panel. And you set it there, you tap it in around there, you stick it in that motherfucker, and then it hardens up. I mean, it sets up. I can't say hard. Anyway, it sets up. And then now you got what it looks like it's like a net. But you can't leave the net flopping around. So what you do is you get more of this resin and you stir it up in a cup and you take a paintbrush and you dab the paintbrush in there and you push your hand in this net and you slap on that resin on the side where it's in the hole, in the big old gaping hole of this fucking quarter panel. And then you got to put gloves on because you don't want that resin on your fucking fingers. You'll never get it off. I mean, you'll never get it off. Not even gasoline will get it off. It'll just stay forever. You'll live someday and you're, Daddy, what's that shit on your fingers? Well, son, it's a long story. Don't worry about it. So anyway, I got ahead of myself. So you push it in there, and then you got to put some sticks in there to hold it. Because this was like, necessity is the mother of all invention. With this was a project. This was an abortion. This quarter panel was an abortion. So you pick the sticks and you put the sticks back there and you hold it and you're blowing on it to get the shit dry, right? Because you got to dry the shit out. And so it takes not long. It doesn't take long to set up. And so then it sets up. So now what you have is you have a crater. This crater is probably about 5-6 inches deep, but it's hard. And it gives you something to stick the Bondo to. Is everyone out there following what I'm talking about? Now you have something for the Bondo to stick to. So let's get the fast forward here. Fast forward. Now you take the Bondo, you stir it up in the cup, and you add the resin. We've gone over this, people. You add the resin to it. Now it's not scientific. You got to put enough resin in there to make it turn like pink. It goes from gray. It's got to go to pink. One second, I got to drink my water. So it goes to pink. And you stir it up. And you could tell. You could tell once it starts to get, it's the right amount because it starts to harden up on you. So then you take a ladle and you start jamming that hole full of this mud. But you can't put too much mud in there right away because it's got to be in layers. It's just got to be in layers because if you put too much Bondo in this hole right away, it'll fall right out the first time the guy hits a fucking speed bump or a bump. It'll just fall out in the street. So you put the first layer in about 1 inch and you let it set up. You let it wait. You set up for an hour. You go out. I would get a pack. That's back when I smoked Marlboro Reds. I'd get a cigarette. Go outside, smoke a cigarette, drink Coca-Cola, wait, listen to some music, some Led Zeppelin on my CDs. Wait, there wasn't CDs back then, cassettes. So I'd be listening to some CDs, cassettes. I'd be listening to my cassettes and waiting for that shit to set up. I'd go back in about, half hour later, and it's set up. I'm touching it. Oh, it's hard. It's set up. It's set up. Well,
You got to make sure, because you got to reuse the next Bondo, because the Bondo that you put in the cup's already set up. You got to throw that shit in the garbage can. There ain't nothing. There's no saving that. So an amateur would take too much Bondo and put it in the cup the first fucking time, and it would set the fuck up. And then they go, "What, Daddy? What? All the Bondo? I gotta go buy more." And the shit not cheap, you know. I'm too smart for that, you know. I'm high school educated. So I get another cup, and I would add more Bondo to it, and add the resin. And this went over 5 times in a row. I'm not going to go back over it. We've been there, done that. We've talked about this already. 5 applications to the point where you got about a gallon's worth of Bondo in a fucking quarter panel. Now that, in body man terms, is a no-no. You just don't fucking do that shit. I mean, if there's any guys out there that work on cars that are Bondo, that are body men, that work in crash and wreckage places, that work on cars like that, they say, this guy's fucking insane. He did this? I was 19 years old. I didn't give a fuck. I was charging Mr. Henderson $40 to do the fender. And I wasn't even going to fucking paint it. I just charged him $40. $40 back in 1979 was pretty good money. Buy myself a few packs of smokes and a 6-pack of Coke, and I'm good to go. Take my girlfriend out for a movie. Oh, that was good times, man. $40. So anyway, I put a gallon's worth of Bondo. I'm saying a gallon. A gallon is in that fucking quarter panel. I'm surprised it didn't sag the car down, because when it firms up, it's heavy. Now you got a gallon's worth of Bondo in there. Now it sticks out. Now it sticks out from the actual fender about a 1/2 inch. Now that's where the Black & Decker drill comes in. Now you got the pad on top. That thing's a coarse pad. It's like a disc. And you put it on there, and what you gotta do, or what I had to do, is I had to make sure I ground off the top layer, that 1/2 inch layer of the Bondo, to match the fender, but actually go down a little bit. And I'll explain that in a minute. So I'm going for about an hour. I mean, I know that's a crazy raw description of what I just did, but that's what you do. I mean, your whole body's shaking with this thing. It's a very primitive tool. And there's dust everywhere, and I didn't have a mask on or goggles. Fuck, what did I know? I was a kid, and I was sneezing Bondo for the next 72 fucking hours, you know? And I had it in my eyes, and I'm like, you fucking shit. You know, I mean, God, right? What did I know? I didn't know shit. I had long hair back then. I had long fucking hair. I had a mullet. And this fucking Bondo fucking dust was in my hair and shit. Fuck me. But I got my job accomplished. So now it was down about maybe 1/4 inch below the line. Then take the Bondo out again. Now this is where it gets real technical. This is where it gets, you have to have a steady hand. I didn't drink alcohol back then. I smoked some grass. But I wasn't high that day. So anyway, I take the Bondo, put it in a cup. We add, what do we do, people? The resin. We stir it up. We lay it, and then we lay it on that fender. Now what we're doing is we're not just blowing it in the hole like we did before. Now we're putting a nice fine layer over the top to match as close as you can to the fender. So we did that. And we don't use a drill anymore after that's in there. You can't. You can't use a drill after that. It'll fuck it up. You take some sandpaper by hand and you sand it. I'm smoking a cigarette. Sanding it down. Sanding it down. You get it down to a point where it's smooth. Smooth enough. Then I take a can of Rust-Oleum primer, gray, because the car was white, and I figured gray was close enough. That's why I sprayed it on. I didn't have a mask on or nothing. So if you get around Rust-Oleum paint and you smelling that shit, you'd be smelling it for 72 fucking hours. I didn't know. I'm just a kid. Spray it on there. And you got to put fucking primer on the car. If you don't, it's going to rust right away. So then that stuff sets up. It takes you got to give it about an hour to set up. And because the car was white, I figured I'd go to the hardware store, and I said to the guy at the hardware store, I said, look, I drove the car to the hardware store. I said, see that Nova out there? A guy helped me at the store. I said, see that Nova out there? He goes, yeah. I said, see that color of the car? He said, yeah. I said, well, what color Rust-Oleum white would work on that? He goes, well, he was an old timer. He goes, well, you don't want gloss because it'll stand out. We don't have a semi-gloss. Well, we have a flat. You could use flat, but that might. I said, fuck it, give me the flat. It was like $4 a can. So I took the flat home, sprayed that shit on there, and it dried. I waited about 24 hours. I said, hey, I called Mr. Henderson. Hey, Mr. Henderson, I got your car. It's done. Yeah, it's done. I'm going to bring it over to your house. Okay, it'll be ready to go. Okay. All right, thanks. Bye. Dropped it off. He was happy. He goes, oh, hey, Gary. Hey, it looks fine. He's going to go to college with it. And he's going to UMass this coming fall. It's going to be great. He won't know. It won't matter. It's going to be great. Give me $40. I was happy. A year later, Mr. Henderson calls me up. Exactly a year later. And he says, Gary, a little problem. My son came home for spring break. And there's a hole where you did the work. It's the holes. It's a hole again. I said, well, fucking what happened? He goes, I don't know. My son said he was going down the street up in Amherst. Amherst is the city where University of Massachusetts is. And he hit a pothole. And all of a sudden, he said the back end of his car went up, came back down, and he heard this giant clunk. And he moved over to the side of the street with his friends. He goes, what the hell was that noise? And he got out, and he went over, and he looked at the side of the quarter panel, and there was a big fucking hole in there. And then he looked down the street, and he saw that there was a big chunk of Bondo. Well, he didn't know it was Bondo. It was a big chunk of gray-looking shit painted on one side, laying on the street. I said, well, gee, Mr. Henderson, how'd that happen? He goes, I don't know, Gary. How did that happen? So this ends our first episode, but it's just a tutorial of when you're doing Bondo in the future, don't put a gallon of fucking Bondo in a car. What happens is, I did it when it was warm. So it expands when it's warm. Anything like plastic material like Bondo, it expands when it's warm. Anyone knows that. Anyone knows that. All right? And so it's set up when it was warm. I didn't know. I didn't think about it. I didn't fucking care, really. I wanted my money. He gets to Amherst, University of fucking Massachusetts. And now it's cold. What happens when it gets cold? Things extract. Things get smaller than expansion. What do you call it anyway? They get smaller. They get away from the fender. Now it's loose. Clunking around in that fender. Every time it hits a bump, clunks again. A big old fucking basketball of Bondo clunks again. It just takes that one bump. On the ground it goes, and there's the hole again. You can see through the hole. You can see that fucking hole through the fender again. So I said to Mr. Henderson, hey, Mr. Henderson, I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take it to a professional body shop. And what they'll do is they'll cut out that whole quarter panel, and then they'll put a brand new metal quarter panel in. Hello? Mr. Henderson, are you there? Mr. Henderson? No. And he hung up on me. I said, I got my money, and that was what? That wasn't quite a year. It was like maybe 10 months later. I thought it was pretty fucking funny. That's called the Bondo experience. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. Anyway, this is a real raw video because I don't know shit about podcasting, but I figured if I'm going to do something with my retirement, I might as well just run my mouth. I hope you enjoy the first episode. And I don't have a remote to shut this thing off. It came with a remote, but I don't know how to I don't know how to use that shit. I'm not technical. I'm a meat cutter, for Christ's sakes. We'll get into that shit later on. You all have a fantastic Sunday. Bye.